Millionaire abandoned his wife for being infertile. For years later, he finds her with his twin daughters. The sound of Emma Collins' heels echoed across the marble floor of the Heinz Convention Center in Boston as she held tightly onto the hands of her twin daughters. Madeleine and Alexandra, in their identical blue dresses, and perfectly groomed Mary Janes chattered excitedly about the aquarium they would be visiting after the conference. At the age of 3, they were the perfect image of each other with golden curls and green eyes that were painfully reminiscent of their father. "Mom, when are we going to see the dolphins?" Madeleine tugged on the sleeve of Emma's blazer, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Soon, darling. Mom just needs to make a quick presentation, and then—" Emma froze in mid-sentence. Across the busy lobby, her eyes met a face she had tried hard to forget for the last 4 years. William Harrison was standing less than 10 meters away, his impeccable Italian suit contrasting with the stunned expression on his face. The successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur, known for his business coolness, seemed to have seen a ghost, or rather 3. Time seemed to slow down as William alternated his gaze between Emma and the girls, his mind processing the obvious math. 3 years old, for years since he left. The truth hit him like a punch in the gut. Ms. Collins, a conference assistant, approached. "Your presentation on startup investment strategies starts in 15 minutes. Emma nodded mechanically, her throat suddenly dry. "Yes, thank you." She looked at her daughters, then at William, who was starting to move towards her. "Rachel," Emma called out to her personal assistant, who was a few steps behind. "Please take the girls to the VIP waiting room. I need to get ready for the performance." "But Mom, the dolphins," Alexandra protested. "We still want to see the dolphins, Princess." "I promise." Emma bent down, kissing each of her daughters' foreheads, her heart pounding as she saw William getting closer and closer. As soon as Rachel had taken the girls away, Emma straightened her posture and turned to face the man who had broken her heart 4 years ago. "Emma," William's voice came out hoarse, charged with emotion. "They're my daughters," she added firmly, raising her chin in defiance. "Our daughters," he corrected, running a hand through his dark hair in a gesture of anguish. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you?" Emma laughed humorlessly. "You left me because I was defective. Remember, your exact words were that you couldn't build a legacy with someone who couldn't give you children." Guilt contorted William's face. "I was wrong. Terribly wrong. If you'd known," Emma interrupted, keeping her voice low but intense. "You didn't even wait for the results of the latest tests. You just decided it was my problem and got on with your life." William stepped forward, his green eyes the same ones his daughters had inherited, shining with regret. "I made the biggest mistake of my life, Emma. Let me explain." Ms. Collins, the conference assistant, reappeared. 5 minutes. Emma adjusted the folder in her hands, regaining her professional composure. "I have a presentation to make. 400 investors are waiting to hear how I turned a failed startup into a $50 million company in less than 2 years." "Please," William pleaded. "Can we talk later? There's so much I need to say." Emma hesitated, years of hurt fighting against the devastated expression on the face of the man she had once loved. "I'll be at the Four Seasons at 7. The girls are having dinner with Rachel." As she walked away towards the auditorium, Emma could feel the weight of William's gaze on her back. Her mind flashed back to that morning 4 years ago, when she woke up to find only a cold note on the bedside table. 2 weeks later, she found out she was pregnant with twins. On her way to the stage, Emma took a deep breath, pushing the memories away. She had built a successful new life, turning pain into fuel for her success. Her daughters were her world, and she had sworn to protect them from any suffering. However, as she organized her notes on the podium, she couldn't ignore the small voice in her mind that whispered an inconvenient truth. Despite everything, William Harrison still had the power to make her heart soar. And now he knew about the girls. The life Emma had carefully constructed was about to change drastically, and she wasn't sure she was prepared for the consequences that would come. But one thing was certain: this time, she would dictate the rules of the game. Emma's performance was flawless, as always. Her voice didn't shake once as she explained graphs and financial projections, even though she felt William's intense gaze from the third row. She had learned to use her pain as fuel, turning every obstacle into a stepping stone to her success. When the final applause echoed through the auditorium, Emma quickly organized her materials, avoiding the networking attempts that usually accompanied her talks. She needed time to collect herself before the meeting that was to come. In her room at the Four Seasons, Emma watched Boston through the panoramic window, the city lights beginning to flicker against the darkening sky. Her reflection in the glass showed a different woman from the one William had abandoned, stronger, more determined, but also more cautious. At 7 o'clock sharp, a soft knock on the door announced his arrival. William entered the room with the same commanding presence she remembered, although something in his eyes seemed different, softer, more vulnerable. "You look stunning," he said, his low voice carrying a mixture of admiration and regret. "We're not here to exchange compliments, William." Emma gestured towards the living area of the suite. "You wanted to talk, so let's talk." William sat down, his fingers drumming nervously on the arm of the armchair. "Madeline and Alexandra. They're beautiful, Emma. They're identical to you, except for their eyes," she added. "Yes, they have your eyes. Why didn't you come to me when you found out about the pregnancy?" Emma let out a bitter laugh. "Are you really asking me that you left me with a note, William? A note after 3 years of marriage? All I deserved was a piece of paper saying I couldn't go on with someone who couldn't give you children? I was an arrogant jerk." William wiped his hands across his face, the ring missing from his finger, leaving a mark that was still visible. "The tech empire I built, the success, it all made me believe I could control every aspect of my life. When the doctors suggested there might be fertility problems, I panicked. And you assumed it was my problem," Emma added, years of hurt overflowing in her words. "You didn't even wait for the final results. Do you know when I found out 2 weeks after you left that it was never my problem? It was a question of timing, of stress." William stood up abruptly, walking over to the window. "I lost 3 years of my daughter's lives. 3 years of first smiles, first steps, first words. They're amazing." Emma said, a soft smile appearing on her lips for the first time since the conversation began. "Madeline is the natural leader, always protecting Alexandra. And Alex, she has a mind for numbers. The other day, I found her trying to calculate how many chocolates she could eat before dinner." A sob disguised as laughter escaped William. "Do they know about me? They know they have a father, but they don't know the details. They're too little yet." Emma stood up, walking over to him. "William, the first need you to understand something. I've built a life for the 3 of us. They're happy, safe, and loved. If you want to be part of their lives, you'll have to prove that you deserve that chance." "I'll do anything." He turned, his green eyes shining with determination. "Anything, Emma. I'm not asking us to go back. I know I don't deserve that. I just want the chance to meet my daughters, to try and make up for lost time." Emma studied the face of the man in front of her. For years had left some expression lines around his eyes, a touch of gray at the temples that hadn't been there before. But beyond the physical changes, there was something else, a humility that the old William Harrison had never shown. "Let's lay down some rules," she finally said. "First, everything will be in their own time. I won't force anything. Secondly, you can appear and disappear from their lives as you please. If you enter the girls' lives, it will be a permanent commitment." "I agree with everything," William replied promptly. Can I at least see a photo of them?" Emma hesitated for a moment before picking up her phone. She scrolled down to a recent photo of the twins in the park, their laughter frozen in time as they played on the swing. William held the phone as if it was something precious, his eyes taking in every detail. "They're perfect," he murmured, his voice breaking. "I have to get the girls now," Emma said softly, retrieving the phone. "I'll think about how we can make it work." "Are you still living in San Francisco?" "No," William replied. "I opened an office here in Boston 6 months ago. I was thinking of setting up on the East Coast." Fate, Emma thought, had a peculiar sense of humor. For years apart, and now their lives were converging again in Boston. "I'll be in touch," she promised, walking towards the door. "But William, take it slow. For them." He nodded, and for a moment Emma glimpsed the man she had fallen in love with years ago, determined, but also capable of a tenderness that few knew. As she rode down in the elevator, Emma allowed a few tears to escape. The day had started like any other and would end with a fundamental change in the life of her little family. She just hoped she was making the right decision in allowing William back into their lives. In his hotel room, William stood still for a long time, looking out at the city, Through the window, his heart lighter and heavier, at the same time lighter for the possibility of meeting his daughters, heavier for the time lost and the mistakes made. But one thing was certain: he wouldn't make the same mistakes this time. Sunday morning dawned with a typical fall softness in Boston. Emma watched her daughters playing in the public garden, their laughter echoing in the fresh air as they fed the ducks in the pond. A week had passed since her unexpected meeting with William, and after several sleepless nights, she had finally made up her mind. "Maddie, Alex, come here for a minute," Emma called out, sitting on a weathered wooden bench. The girls ran towards her cheeks, flushed from play. "Remember when you asked me about Daddy?" Emma began, her heart racing. The twins nodded in sync, their green eyes, so similar to William's, fixed on her. "Well, something important has happened. Your father is in Boston, and he'd really like to meet you." Madeline, always the assertive one, frowned. "Didn't he like us before?" The innocent question hit Emma like an arrow. "It's not that, dear. It's complicated. Sometimes adults make mistakes, but your father really wants to be part of their lives now." Alexandra, quieter and more observant, hugged her mother's arm. "Is he nice?" "Yes, he is," Emma replied, surprised at the honesty in her own words. After all, William had always had a good heart, even if his arrogance had blinded him in the past. On the other side of the park, William was waiting anxiously as agreed. Emma spotted him, impeccable in his navy blue cashmere sweater and slacks, trying to look casual as he nervously paced back and forth. "Would you like to meet him?" Emma asked softly. The girls exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations that only twins seemed capable of. "Can we take Mr. Whiskers?" Madeline asked, squeezing the Warren stuffed rabbit she was carrying. Emma smiled. "Of course you can." They crossed the park slowly, Emma holding one hand of each daughter. William stopped walking when he saw them approaching, and Emma realized that he was trembling slightly. "Hello," he said softly when they got close enough, crouching down to meet the girls. "Are you our father?" Alexandra asked, directly, surprising both Emma and William with her directness. "Yes, I am," William replied, his voice breaking. "My name is William, but you can call me Will if you prefer." "I'm Alexandra, but everyone calls me Alex," she introduced herself formally, holding out her small hand. William shook it gently, unshed tears shining in his eyes. "And I'm Madeline," the other twin added, still half hidden behind Emma's leg. "This is Mr. Whiskers." She held up the stuffed rabbit like a shield. "It's a pleasure to meet you all," William smiled, including the rabbit in his greeting. "Do you like ice cream? There's a great ice cream parlor nearby." The girls' eyes lit up and they looked at Emma for permission. After her nod, they started walking towards the ice cream parlor. William kept a respectful distance, letting the girls dictate the pace of the interaction. In the J.P. Lick's ice cream parlor, the twins enjoyed their ice cream cones while William watched them with fascination, taking in every detail: how Madeline licked her ice cream methodically while Alexandra attacked hers with enthusiasm, how they shared complicit glances and laughed at jokes that only they understood. "Do you work with computers?" Alexandra asked between licks of her chocolate ice cream. "Yes, how did you know?" "Mom has a picture of you in a technology magazine," she replied, innocently, making Emma blush. William looked surprised at Emma, who shrugged. "I keep up to date with the market. It's part of my job." The afternoon passed quickly, filled with curious questions from the girls and careful answers from William. Emma watched the interaction with a mixture of apprehension and relief, noticing how he made an effort to build a genuine connection with his daughters. As the sun began to set, it was time to leave. The girls, although reluctant, were exhausted after the afternoon of emotions. Can I see you again?" William asked hesitantly, clearly directing the question at both his daughters and Emma. "How about next weekend?" Emma suggested, surprising herself with her own mood. "There's a kite festival on the Charles River Esplanade." "I like kites," Madeline exclaimed, finally showing genuine enthusiasm for William. "Then it's a deal." He smiled, his eyes meeting Emma's gratefully. As she watched William walk away, Emma felt a lump in her throat. The girls waved cheerfully, Mr. Whiskers swinging on Madeline's hand. "He looks sad sometimes," Alexander commented insightfully on the way home. "Like Simba's eyes when he lost his father," Madeline agreed, referring to her favorite movie. Emma swallowed, impressed by her daughter's sensitivity. "Sometimes when we lose time with people we love, we feel sad. But we can try to do things differently to be better." "Like when I broke Grandma's vase and then drew a picture for her?" Madeline asked. "Something like that," Emma smiled, parking the car in the garage of her townhouse on Beacon Hill. Sometimes we need second chances. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Emma found a message from William. "Thanks for today. They are more incredible than I could have imagined. You've done an incredible job, Emma." Sitting on her balcony watching the lights of Boston, Emma allowed herself to admit that maybe, just maybe, some stories deserved a new chapter. William couldn't concentrate on his executive meeting on 2nd Street. His mind constantly wandered back to the previous weekend, replaying every smile, every word of the daughters he had just met. The notebook in front of him was filled with distracted scribbles, 2 little smiley faces unconsciously drawn during the quarterly presentation. "Mr. Harrison," his assistant's voice brought him back to reality. "The board is waiting for your decision on the merger with TechVision." "Excuse me," he shifted in his chair, trying to regain his usual professional posture. "Can we reschedule for tomorrow? I need to go over a few details." After dismissing the team, William remained in his office, overlooking Boston Harbor. For years ago, business decisions like this would have been his only concern. Now, for the first time, the tech empire he had built seemed insignificant compared to the challenge of regaining the trust of his daughters, and perhaps if he dared to dream Emma. His cell phone vibrated with a message from her. The girls asked if he's still going to the kite festival tomorrow. "Alexandra is designing one especially for you." William's heart raced as he read the message. He had spent the whole week researching kites, determined to turn the outing into something memorable. He opened his drawer, revealing 3 carefully chosen kites, one with a unicorn print for Madeline, another with geometric patterns for Alexandra. He had already noticed her affinity with numbers, and a third, simpler but elegant, with Emma in mind. The doorbell of his apartment rang that night, surprising him. Through the peephole, he saw his sister Charlotte, who had flown in from Chicago as soon as she heard the news. "So it's true," Charlotte entered unceremoniously, her heels marking the wooden floor. "You have twin daughters, and you never knew? How did you?" "My assistant saw you in the public garden on Sunday. I couldn't believe it when she showed me the photos." Charlotte threw her bag on the sofa. "Well, what a mess you've made." William poured his sister a glass of wine, knowing he needed this conversation. Charlotte had always been his conscience, the only person who confronted him without fear. "I know I've ruined everything, Char, but I'm trying to fix it." "Fix it?" She arched an eyebrow. "Will you abandon your pregnant wife? How do you intend to fix it?" "Emma's giving me a chance to meet the girls." "It's more than I deserve, I know." Charlotte studied her brother for a moment. "You still love her?" "It wasn't a question. I've never stopped loving her," he admitted, running his hands over his face. "But now it's not about us. It's about Madeline and Alexandra." "My nieces," Charlotte smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. "What are they like?" William picked up his phone, showing the photos Emma had allowed him to take on Sunday. "Madeline is the natural leader, protective. Alexandra is more analytical, observant. They are perfect. They look like Emma," Charlotte commented, glancing through the photos. "Except for the eyes. They're definitely the Harrisons' eyes." "Char, I've wasted so much time," William's voice faltered. 3 years of their lives. I wasn't there when they were born, when they took their first steps." "Then don't waste any more time moaning." Charlotte held her brother's hand. "Show them and Emma that you've changed, that you're no longer that man obsessed with control and success." William nodded, getting up to get something from his office. He returned with a folder. "What's this?" "I'm transferring 40% of my Harrison Tech shares to a trust in the girls' names," he explained. "And another 10% for Emma." "Well, it's not about money," he interrupted. "It's about making sure they never have to worry about anything. It's the least I can do after everything." Charlotte watched her brother with a mixture of pride and concern. "You've really changed." "I had to. After Emma left, I realized that all the success in the world means nothing if you're alone." William's phone vibrated again. It was another message from Emma, this time with a photo. Alexandra asleep, cuddled up to a paper kite she had made herself, decorated with numbers and mathematical symbols. "She spent all afternoon making it," the message said. "She said she wants to teach you how to make one like it tomorrow." William felt the tears escape without permission. Charlotte approached, hugging her brother. "It'll be all right," she whispered. "One kite at a time." That night, William could hardly sleep, looking forward to the next day. His daughters were giving him a chance to be part of their lives, and he was determined not to waste a single second. In his closet before going to bed, he found an old keepsake box. Inside was the wedding ring he hadn't had the heart to throw away. He He put it back on his finger, not as a symbol of hope for reconciliation with Emma, but as a constant reminder of what his arrogance had cost him and what he couldn't afford to lose again. The kite festival would be more than just a Sunday outing. It would be the first of many steps on his journey of redemption, and this time William Harrison was determined to get it right. The Charles River Esplanade was full of families that Sunday morning with kites of all colors and shapes dancing against the blue Boston sky. Emma was adjusting Alexandra's coat while Madeline bounced anxiously beside her holding her still-wrapped unicorn kite. "He's late," Madeline observed, her green eyes scanning the crowd. "Only 5 minutes, darling," Emma replied, checking her watch. A part of her feared that William wouldn't show up, that everything would revert to the familiar pattern of disappointment. But before she could elaborate on that thought, she spotted him running towards her carrying a large bag. "Sorry I'm late." William gasped, his hair slightly mussed by the wind. The traffic on Beacon Street was terrible. "Well," Alexandra exclaimed, surprising both Emma and William with her use of the nickname. She held up her homemade kite proudly. "Look what I've done." William crouched down to examine his daughter's creation, genuinely impressed by the mathematical details. "That's amazing, Alex. Did you draw a Fibonacci sequence here?" The girl's eyes lit up when she realized that he had recognized the pattern. Emma watched the interaction with a tightness in her chest, remembering how William had always had a gift for numbers, something Alexandra had clearly inherited. "I brought you something," William announced, taking the kites out of the bag. Madeline's face lit up at the sight of the unicorn, while Alexandra examined her geometric kite with scientific fascination. Emma was surprised when he took a third kite out of the bag, deep blue with silver details. "This one's for you," he said softly. "I remembered that blue has always been your favorite color." The gesture caught her off guard. It was the kind of detail she hadn't expected him to remember after so long. The next few hours were filled with trial and error, laughter, and small victories. William showed surprising patience, teaching the girls the basic techniques for making kites fly. Emma couldn't help but notice how he had changed. The impatient executive she had met years ago was now kneeling on the grass laughing as his own kite plunged out of control. "Mom, look," Madeline shouted when she finally managed to keep her kite in the air. "I'm doing it," Emma cheered, but her smile faltered as she noticed a few people nearby, discreetly taking pictures with their cell phones. Of course, William Harrison, playing in a public park with 2 children, would be news. William noticed to his face, hardening momentarily. "I'm sorry," he muttered to Emma. "I could ask you to stop." "No," she decided after a moment. "The girls need to get used to it eventually. Let's try to keep them protected as much as possible." "I've already called my legal department," he assured her. "They're preparing documents to protect their privacy. No publication will be able to use photos without authorization." Emma nodded, grateful for his foresight. It was another sign of change. The William she had known would have enjoyed the publicity. When Alexandra began to show signs of hunger, they decided to have an impromptu picnic. William had thought of everything, bringing a complete hamper from Le Boulanger, including the chocolate croissants the girls had mentioned loving the previous Sunday. "How did you know?" Emma asked as the girls devoured their croissants. "I've been paying attention," he replied simply. "I'm trying to make up for all the time I've lost." Over lunch, the girls bombarded William with questions about his childhood, his family, his work. He answered each one honestly and simply, adapting his explanations to their level. "Do we have an aunt?" Madeline asked between bites. "Yes, my sister Charlotte," William smiled. "She lives in Chicago and is dying to meet you." "Like Aunt Rachel?" Alexandra asked, referring to Emma's sister. "Something like that." William looked at Emma for approval. "Could she maybe visit sometime?" Emma considered for a moment. Charlotte had always been kind to her even after their separation. "We could organize something." The sun was beginning to lower when they decided to call it a day. The girls were exhausted but exhilarated, their kites carefully folded to take home. "Can I hug you?" Alexander suddenly asked William, surprising everyone. He swallowed, looking at Emma for permission before opening his arms. The hug was brief but meaningful. Madeline, not wanting to be left out, soon joined them. Emma felt tears forming as she watched the scene, her daughters hugging their father for the first time. "Same day next weekend?" William asked hopefully as they parted. "Can we go to the aquarium?" Madeline suggested. "Alex wants to see the penguins." "If your mother agrees," William replied diplomatically. Emma nodded, realizing that she couldn't and perhaps didn't want to stop this connection that was beginning to form. On the way home, as the girls dozed off in the back seat, Emma reflected on how life could change in a matter of days. 2 weeks ago, William was just a painful memory. Now he was slowly becoming part of their routine. Her phone vibrated with a message from him. "Thank you for today, for everything. I know I don't deserve this chance, but I promise I won't waste it." Emma looked through the rearview mirror at her sleeping daughters, each still holding their kite. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel hope. The news about William Harrison and his newly discovered daughters exploded in the financial media the following Monday. The Wall Street Journal ran a cover story with the headline, "Harrison Tech CEO Meets Unexpected Heiresses," accompanied by blurry photos of the Kite Festival. Emma watched her email inbox fill up with interview requests as she tried to concentrate on her own presentation to investors. "Ms. Collins," her secretary interrupted, "Mr. Harrison is on line 3. Emma took a deep breath before answering. "William." "Emma, I'm sorry about all this exposure." His voice sounded strained. "My legal team is already suing the media outlets that published the photos of the girls without authorization. I'll just receive an email from the school principal." Emma massaged her temples. "They need to step up security because of the sudden press interest." "I've already arranged for a discreet security team," William replied quickly. "They start today. They're the same ones who protect the families of other Silicon Valley executives." Emma wanted to protest, to say that she could take care of her daughter's safety on her own, as she had always done. But the genuine concern in William's voice made her reconsider. "All right," she relented, "but we need to talk about how to deal with this. Can we have dinner tonight after the girls are asleep?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Of course. Would you like me to order something from Sorellina?" The fact that he still remembered his favorite Italian restaurant in Boston caught her off guard. "Yes, that would be great." At 9 in the evening, after putting the girls to bed, Emma heard the doorbell ring softly. William was standing in her doorway, holding Sorellina bags and a folder of documents. "I've brought gnocchi alla Sorrentina," he said, entering the elegant townhouse. "And the lawyer's documents on protecting the girls' privacy." Emma guided him into the dining room, noticing how his eyes roamed over the family photos on the walls. Moments he had missed the girls' first Christmas birthdays, trips to the beach. "They look happy," he commented softly, stopping in front of a photo of the twins in their ballet tutus. "They are happy," Emma confirmed, starting to organize the dishes. "That's why we need to make sure all this media attention doesn't hurt them." They sat down to dinner, the familiarity of the moment, bringing back memories of when they were married and shared late meals after long days at work. "I've hired a press officer who specializes in crisis management," William explained between mouthfuls. "She suggests we give a single exclusive controlled interview to put an end to the speculation." "I don't want the girls exposed," Emma was firm. "Neither do I. The interview would just be with us, explaining the situation in general and asking for privacy." Emma considered the proposal while savoring her gnocchi. "Which outlet would you suggest?" "Boston Globe. Local, respectable, and we can have more control over the narrative." The silence that followed was filled only by the clinking of cutlery. Emma observed William, discreetly noticing how much thinner he looked than 4 years ago, with a few gray hairs at his temples that made him look strangely more attractive. "The girls asked about you today," she finally said. "Alexander wanted to know if you'd be in their ballet recital next month." William's face lit up. "They do ballet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Madeline loves the moves, but Alex only continues because she doesn't want to leave her sister alone." "Can I go?" The hope in her voice was palpable. "It's important for them," Emma nodded. "But William, I need you to understand something. I can't go through that again. I can't watch them suffer if you decide it's too much and leave again." William put down his cutlery, his face serious. "Emma, I know I don't deserve your trust, but for the last 4 years, every decision I've made has been about trying to be someone better, someone worthy of a second chance." "What's changed?" she asked, the question that had been consuming her since their reunion. "I'd change," he replied simply. "After you left, I realized that I had built my whole life on the wrong things. Success, power, control. None of that mattered when I found myself alone in that huge house in San Francisco." Emma felt tears forming, but held them back. "You hurt us a lot, William." "I know," his voice faltered. "And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it." "I'm not asking us to go back, Emma. I just want the chance to be the father our daughters deserve." A noise upstairs interrupted the moment. Alexandra appeared on the stairs sleepy. "Mom, Will," she murmured, surprised to see her father. "Hey, Princess," William smiled gently. "Can't sleep?" Alexandra came downstairs, still hugging her stuffed rabbit. "I had a bad dream." Emma tried to get up, but William stopped her with a gentle gesture. "May I?" After Emma nodded, he approached his daughter. "Do you want to tell me about the nightmare?" Alexandra snuggled into his lap with a naturalness that surprised both adults. "I had very large numbers. I couldn't work it out." William laughed softly. "You know, when I was little, I used to have nightmares about math too. Do you want me to teach you a trick to scare those dreams away?" Emma watched father and daughter go upstairs, William softly whispering something about counting math sheep. 15 minutes later, he returned to the dining room. "She's asleep," he announced, a silly grin on his face. "After making me promise to help with her math homework tomorrow." Emma felt her heart squeeze. This was how it should have been from the start, William being a present father, helping with nightmares and homework. "I think we can do the interview," she decided, "but on our terms." William nodded gratefully. When he left that night, something had subtly changed between them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps it was the beginning of an understanding. The news about the Harrison tech heiresses had spread like wildfire, transforming the quiet routine Emma had built up in Boston. In the Boston Globe's conference room, she nervously adjusted the sleeve of her blazer, while veteran journalist Margaret Peterson prepared her tape recorder. William sat next to her, emanating a calm that she knew was only superficial. His fingers, drumming discreetly on the arm of the chair, gave him away. In 4 years apart, Emma had learned to read the signs of his anxiety even better than when they were married. "Let's start with the basics," Margaret smiled gently. "How did you originally meet?" Emma and William exchanged glances, both momentarily transported to that technology conference at Stanford, where a young financial analyst had publicly challenged the arrogant CEO's projections. "Stanford 2015. William replied, a genuine smile appearing on his lips. "Emma destroyed my presentation on market projections in front of 500 investors. And he offered me a job the next day." Emma added, recalling the moment with a mixture of amusement and nostalgia. The interview flowed naturally, touching on their marriage separation and recent reunion. Emma noted how William chose his words carefully when discussing his mistakes, taking full responsibility for his past actions. "The public wants to know, is there a chance of reconciliation?" Margaret asked, her attentive eyes catching every reaction. A heavy silence filled the room. Emma felt her heart race, aware of William's gaze on her. "Our current focus is our daughters," she replied diplomatically. "Madeline and Alexander deserve to have their parents working together for their well-being." William nodded in agreement, but Emma noticed a glimmer of something in his eyes, disappointment. Perhaps after the interview, they walked together through Boston Common, enjoying the last rays of October sunshine. It was easier to talk like this on the move without the weight of direct stares. "You were amazing in there," William commented, his hands in his coat pockets. "You always knew how to handle the press better than I did." Years of practice presenting financial reports to skeptical investors, she smiled slightly. "The twins have ballet in an hour. Would you like to come along? It would be a good opportunity to get to know their routine." William's face lit up at the unexpected invitation. "I'd love to." In the dance studio, they sat side by side, watching through the glass as Madeline performed graceful pirouettes and Alexandra tried to keep up with less enthusiasm. "Alex has a gift for numbers," Emma commented softly. "But she's still in ballet for Maddie. They've always been like that, inseparable, protecting each other." "As we were," William murmured, almost to himself. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. Yes, they had been like that, a perfect team, making up for each other's flaws, until the obsessive desire for an heir had destroyed everything. Well, Alexandra waved excitedly when she noticed him losing her balance in the process. Madeline immediately grabbed her hand, steadying her. "They remind me so much of you," William said, his voice breaking. "The strength, the determination, even at the age of 3. "They have a lot of you too," Emma replied. "Alex's intelligence, Maddie's natural leadership." "Emma," William turned to face her, his green eyes intense. "About the journalist question?" "William, please," she interrupted softly. "We can't just listen to me," he insisted. "I know I don't deserve a second romantic chance. But I want you to know that these last few days, seeing you with our daughters, realizing what an incredible mother you are, I've fallen even more in love. Emma felt tears for me. I can't go through that again. The girls can't. I understand, he interrupted her gently. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that the man you met 8 years ago has finally grown up, and that he never stopped loving you. The moment was interrupted by 2 small figures in pink tutus running towards them. Mama, did you see my pirouette? Madeleine asked excitedly. Beautiful princess, William smiled, hugging them both. And Alex, you kept your balance very well today. Can I show you my math later? Alexander asked hopefully. How about pizza and homework? Emma suggested, surprising everyone, including herself. At our house, William's smile lit up his whole face. That would be perfect. As she watched William helping Alexander with her equations later that evening, Madeleine dozing off on the sofa, after devouring 2 slices of pizza, Emma allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like if they were a real family again. But for now, this moment, imperfect, hesitant, but full of possibilities, would have to suffice. The interview in the Boston Globe provoked exactly the effect Emma had feared, a flurry of speculation about her personal life. Her colleagues at work tried to disguise their prying eyes, and even her assistant seemed eager to find out more about the rekindled romance that social media was so fond of. Mom, why are people taking pictures of our house? Madeleine asked over breakfast, her small forehead furrowed in confusion. Emma exchanged a worried glance with Rachel, her personal assistant and longtime friend who had practically become part of the family over the last 4 years. They're curious people, dear, Emma explained softly. But we don't have to worry about them. Well, your father is taking care of it. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Emma's phone vibrated with a message from William, reinforced security team. Can we talk about moving you temporarily to a more private location? The suggestion made Emma hesitate. Her house on Beacon Hill was her refuge, the place where she had rebuilt her life after William left. But the girls needed privacy. I have a suggestion, Rachel interjected, noticing Emma's worried expression. My family has a house in Manchester by the sea. It's secluded with private access to the beach. It would be perfect until the hustle and bustle dies down. The idea of getting away from the city for a few weeks was tempting. The twins would love the beach, even in the fall, and the location, less than an hour from Boston, would allow them to maintain their school routines. Can you visit us there? Alexander asked, surprising Emma with her insight. If you want, Emma replied cautiously. We could invite him to spend a few weekends. The girls exchanged excited glances, and Emma realized how William had become an important part of their lives in such a short time. It was frightening and comforting at the same time. That afternoon, while the twins were at school, Emma met William in a discreet cafe in Cambridge, away from the prying eyes of the media. Manchester by the sea, he repeated after she explained a plan. I know the area. It's perfect for girls. It would be temporary, Emma clarified. Just until the dust settles. William nodded, swirling his coffee cup nervously. Can I help with the move? And maybe I could rent something nearby, just for the weekends, of course. Emma studied his face, noticing the mixture of hope and hesitation in his eyes. The arrogant William she had met years ago would never have asked permission like that. The girls would like that, she admitted. Alexander asked for you this morning. She's amazing, William smiled. Yesterday, she sent me a photo of the math problem she solved on her own. She's years ahead of her age. As you were, Emma commented softly. As we were, he corrected. You are always as brilliant as me, Emma. It's just that I was too blinded by my own ego to recognize it properly. The silence that followed was laden with unspoken memories. Emma remembered their heated discussions about the financial market, the nights spent developing investment strategies, the way their minds seemed to work in perfect sync. I need to tell you something, William broke the silence. I transferred a significant part of my shares to a trust fund in the girls' names. William, it's not about money, he interrupted her gently. It's about ensuring that they always have security whatever happens to me. And I've also transferred 10% to you. Emma felt her heart race. I can't accept that. It's not a gift, he explained. It's belated retribution for what you've built up on your own. For the incredible mother you are, for the strong woman you've become in spite of me, not because of me. Unexpected tears welled up in Emma's eyes. You've really changed having you. I had to, William replied simply. Losing you, losing our family, was the biggest mistake of my life. I can't change the past, but I can try to be better now. Emma's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was a girl's school. Madeline has a fever, she informed after hanging up. I need to pick her up. Can I come with you? William asked hesitantly. I have a meeting in 2 hours, but I can reschedule. Come along, Emma decided. She'll be happy to see you. On the way to school, Emma reflected on how her life had changed in a matter of weeks. The man next to her was no longer the cold businessman who had abandoned her, but he wasn't exactly the same as the one she had fallen in love with years ago either. He was someone new, someone who was trying to be better. When they arrived at the school infirmary, they found Madeline curled up in a chair, Alexandra sitting faithfully beside her, refusing to go back to class without her sister. Well, Madeline smiled weakly at the sight of him, holding out her arms for a hug, which he readily offered. Hey, princess, he picked her up carefully. Aren't you feeling well? Emma watched the interaction with a lump in her throat. There was something deeply right about that scene, William holding his sick daughter Alexandra, holding her sister's hand, all together as a family should be. Perhaps she thought forgiveness wasn't something you decide to give away all at once. Maybe it was something that grew naturally, like the girls' love for their father, like the new version of William that revealed itself every day. And maybe, just maybe, there was room in her heart to forgive, not only for the sake of the girls, but also for herself. The house in Manchester by the Sea was exactly what the family needed. Situated on a secluded promontory overlooking the Atlantic, the property offered the privacy Emma so desperately wanted for her daughters. The twins had instantly fallen in love with the place, especially the little stone path that led down to the private beach. Mommy, can we build a sand castle? Madeline asked, already recovered from the fever of the previous week. She and Alexandra were pressed up against the panoramic living room window, watching the waves break on the beach below. It's a bit chilly to play in the sand today, dear, Emma replied, organizing the last of the moving boxes. But maybe at the weekend, when Will comes. The girls perked up at the mention of their father. Over the last 2 weeks, William had become a constant presence in their lives, even if mainly through video calls during the week. He had rented a beach house a few minutes away, fulfilling his promise to be around at weekends. Rachel said there's going to be a snowstorm next week. Alexandra commented, her green eyes fixed on the cloudy horizon. Can we make snowmen with Will? Emma smiled, remembering how William used to hate the cold. I'm sure your father will love freezing his fingers off, making snowmen with you. The sound of tires on gravel announced someone's arrival. Through the window, Emma saw William's black Range Rover parked. He had promised to bring supplies for the weekend, including materials for a science project that Alexandra was eager to start. Well, the twins ran to the door before he could even knock. My princesses, William hugged them, precariously balancing the bags he was carrying. His hair was slightly disheveled by the sea wind, and Emma noticed that he looked more relaxed here than he ever had in San Francisco. Did you bring everything for our experiment? Alexandra asked anxiously. Of course I did, William smiled, placing the bags on the kitchen counter. And I also brought something special for our artist, he added, taking out a professional set of colored pencils from Madeline, who had shown a natural talent for drawing. Emma watched the interaction with mixed emotions. It was surreal to see William, always so focused on results and business success, now totally absorbed in children's projects and colorful drawings. I've also brought you something, he said softly as the girls ran off to explore their new presents. It was a folder of documents. The trust fund papers I mentioned. I'd like you to review them. Emma took the folder, her fingers brushing lightly against his. Thank you. I'll my lawyer take a look. Of course, William nodded, looking nervous. Emma, there's something else I need to tell you. Well, Alexander interrupted, running back into the kitchen. Can we start the experiment now, please? How about after lunch? Emma suggested, noticing the time. Rachel left a lasagna ready. Lunch was surprisingly pleasant, filled with stories from the girls about their new school and ambitious plans for the weekend. William listened to them with genuine attention, asking questions and offering suggestions that showed how much he had dedicated himself to getting to know them over the last few weeks. After the meal, while the twins concentrated on their science experiment at the kitchen table, William finally got a moment alone with Emma on the balcony. I've received an offer to sell Harrison Tech, he said without preamble. A merger with the largest technology company in the country. Emma felt her heart race. It's what you've always wanted. It was, he corrected. But now I have other priorities. I turned down the offer. William, instead, he continued. I'm restructuring the company. Moving the main headquarters to Boston permanently. I want to be close to the girls, Emma. I can't miss another important moment in their lives. Emma studied his face, looking for any sign of doubt or regret, but found only determination and sincerity. The girls would be happy to have you around, she admitted. They miss you during the week. Just the girls, William asked softly, his eyes meeting hers. Before Emma could answer, an excited shout came from the kitchen. Mom will work, the volcano is exploding. They rushed inside, finding the twins surrounded by colorful foam overflowing from their papier-mâché volcano. Alexandra was beaming with scientific pride, while Madeline was already grabbing her new pencils to draw the eruption. Watching the scene, her daughter's happy, William helping to clean up the mess while explaining the chemistry behind the reaction, Emma felt something change inside her. Perhaps it was possible to build something new from the ruins of the past. Something different, but just as valuable. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity: walks on the beach, more science experiments, and finally an impromptu pizza dinner when everyone realized that no one had thought to prepare anything more elaborate. When the girls finally fell asleep exhausted, but happy, Emma found William on the balcony again, watching the stars over the ocean. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what? For trying, for changing, for loving our daughters the way they deserve to be loved." William turned to face her, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "Thank you for giving me the chance to try." The sea wind blew stronger, bringing with it promises of change and unspoken possibilities. Emma realized that, like the tides, life had its own cycles of coming and going. And maybe, just maybe, some tides bring back things we thought we'd lost forever. The first snowfall of November arrived earlier than expected, turning Manchester by Sea into a winter postcard. Emma woke up to the sound of the twins celebrating the snow that had covered the beach overnight, their shrieks of joy echoing through the house. "Mom promised he'd come today," Alexander reminded, her face pressed against the glass of the window. "Will he be able to drive in all this snow?" Emma checked her phone, finding several messages from William. He had left Boston before dawn to avoid the worst of the storm. His dedication to the girls never ceased to amaze her. "He's on his way," Emma assured her, helping Madeline into her snow boots. "But first we need to have a proper breakfast." The twins had barely finished their waffles when William's Range Rover pulled into the driveway covered in snow. He got out of the car carrying not only the usual bags of supplies, but also 2 small red sledges. "I thought we could take advantage of the snow," he explained when he saw Emma's questioning look. "There's a perfect sledding hill behind the house." The girls burst into joy, running to hug their father. Emma noticed how they no longer hesitated to call him Dad, now the word flowing naturally after almost 2 months of constant cohabitation. "I brought you some coffee." William offered Emma a steaming cup of his favorite coffee from the little coffee shop in Boston they used to frequent years ago. "Do you still drink caramel macchiato with extra cinnamon?" The gesture caught her off guard. "You remembered?" "I remember everything about you, Emma," he said softly, his green eyes the same ones he had given his daughters, meeting hers with intensity. The moment was interrupted by Madeline pulling on William's coat. "Dad, shall we make snowmen first, please?" The morning passed in a succession of snow activities. William, who had previously considered the New England winter an inconvenience for his business, now seemed perfectly content to roll around in the snow with his daughters. Emma photographed them building a whole family of snowmen, each personalized with improvised accessories. "This is your dad," Alexandra pointed to the tallest snowman, who sported a tie made of twigs. "And this is Mom," she indicated the next doll decorated with a wreath of pine cones. "And these are us," Madeline added, showing the 2 smaller dolls holding hands. Emma felt her heart squeeze at the sight of the snowy representation of her family. This was how the girls saw them, now united, even if in a different way to the conventional one. After lunch, William insisted on taking the twins to try out the sledges. Emma accompanied them, her heart alternating between maternal concern and admiration at how careful he was testing the steepness of the hill and establishing clear safety rules. "Mom, come with us," Madeline called from the top of the hill, where William was adjusting his crash helmet. Emma hesitated only for a moment before climbing the hill. William offered his hand to help her up the steepest part, and she accepted, ignoring the familiar tingling that his touch still provoked. "Girls need to see that adults can have fun too." He smiled that smile that used to make her heart melt years ago. It still did. They took turns going down solo, and in pairs the twins' laughter echoing around the property. On one particularly lively descent, Alexandra lost her balance, at the end falling into the fluffy snow. William reached her in seconds, but the girl was already laughing. "Just like when you fell off your skis in Aspen," Emma commented without thinking, remembering their honeymoon. "Do you still remember that?" William asked, helping Alexandra to her feet. "Some memories are hard to forget," she replied softly. As the sun began to set and the cold intensified, they returned to the house. The girls' cheeks were red from the cold and excitement, their eyes sparkling with the joy of the day. "Hot chocolate," William suggested, already familiar with the kitchen after so many weekends. With extra marshmallows for our little skiers, Emma watched them prepare the drinks, with the girls helping, each adding their own exaggerated amount of marshmallows. It was a domestic scene she'd never imagined witnessing, not with William, not after all. "Dad, can you sleep here tonight?" Alexander asked between sips of chocolate. "It's snowing very hard." William looked at Emma, clearly leaving the decision in her hands. "There's a guest room," she offered, surprising herself. "And the forecast is for more snow overnight." The girls celebrated, already planning more snow adventures for the next day. Emma realized she was smiling despite her reservations. Seeing her daughters so happy, so complete with their father present, made the whole painful past seem a little less heavy. Later, after putting the twins to bed, Emma found William in the living room, looking at the day's photos on his phone. "Thank you," he said when she sat down on the sofa opposite. "For today, for allowing me to be a part of their lives, for everything." "They love you," Emma replied simply. "And you've proved you deserve that love." "What about you, Emma?" he asked, his voice low but intense. "Is there still room in your heart to forgive completely, to maybe—" A distant thunder interrupted his sentence, causing the lights to flicker. Emma knew that the twins would wake up startled at any moment. They had always feared storms. As expected, small footsteps were heard in the hallway. It was time to be a mother again, to comfort her daughters. The conversation with William and all the possibilities it suggested would have to wait. But as they climbed the stairs together to calm the girls down, Emma realized that perhaps some waiting was worth it. The storm that hit Manchester by the sea that night brought more than just snow and thunder. As William and Emma climbed the stairs to comfort the frightened twins, a blackout plunged the house into darkness. "Maddie, Alex," Emma called out, her voice calm and reassuring in the dimness. In here, the girls' voices came from Alexander's room, where the two had already taken refuge together, as they always did during storms. William used the flashlight on his cell phone to light the way, finding the twins curled up under Alexandra's comforter of planets and stars. Their little faces emerged from the covers, green eyes wide, with each new clap of thunder. "Do you know what my sister Charlotte and I used to do during thunderstorms when we were little?" William sat on the edge of the bed, his soft voice bringing an immediate calm to the girls. "What?" Madeline asked, clutching her inseparable Mr. Whiskers. "We used to build forts out of sheets and tell stories." The storm seemed less frightening inside our own castle. Emma watched in amazement as William turned fear into adventure. Within minutes, using extra sheets and the flashlights from their cell phones, they created a cozy shelter in the middle of the room. Shadows danced on the makeshift walls as William told stories of his childhood in Chicago, making the girls laugh with his impersonations of Aunt Charlotte. "Come on, go into the fort too," Alexandra asked, holding out her hand to Emma, who was still standing in the doorway. "Of course," William smiled, lifting a corner of the sheet. "Every castle needs a queen." Emma hesitated for a moment before joining them in the small space. The warmth of their close bodies and the girls' laughter created an intimate atmosphere that made her heart ache with a long-forgotten familiarity. "Tell a story about when you and Will were married," Madeline asked unexpectedly, making both adults freeze for a moment. Emma exchanged a glance with William before beginning. "Well, there was this one time when your father tried to surprise me with a romantic dinner. And I completely burnt the risotto," William added, laughing. "We had Ora pizza, but it was one of the best nights of my life." Emma admitted, softly, lost in memories. "Because no matter what went wrong, we found a way to make it work." William finished, his eyes meeting hers in the soft light of the lanterns. The twins listened, fascinated, absorbing every detail of this version of their parents they had never met. Alexandra, always observant, noticed something different in the way they looked at each other. "Do you still like each other?" she asked with the innocence of her 3 years. The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of the storm outside. Emma felt her heart racing, aware of William's intense gaze on her. "It's complicated, darling," she finally replied. Sometimes adults make mistakes," William interrupted gently. "Big mistakes that hurt people we love. And even when we repent and try to make things right, it takes time for certain wounds to heal." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes, struck by the honesty and vulnerability in his words. The storm began to subside, and soon the twins fell asleep, exhausted by the night's adventure. William and Emma quietly left the makeshift fort, leaving the lanterns burning like makeshift lamps. In the dark corridor, they stood still for a moment, the still absent electricity creating a bubble of intimacy around them. "You've really changed," Emma whispered, more a realization than a question. "I had to change," William replied, his voice just as low. "Losing you, losing our family, made me realize that all the success in the world means nothing if you have no one to share it with." Emma felt her heart squeeze. "William, I'm not asking for anything," he hastened to say. "I just want you to know that even if you never forgive me completely, even if we never go back to the way things were, I'm grateful for every moment you allow me to spend with you and our daughters." The light suddenly came back on, breaking the moment. But something had changed between them, as if the storm had washed away old hurts, leaving room for new possibilities. "The guest room is ready," Emma said softly. "And thank you for today, for the fort, for everything." William nodded, understanding everything she wasn't saying. As they walked in opposite directions down the corridor, they both knew that something had changed that night. Like the calm after the storm, a new dawn was approaching, bringing with it the promise of clearer days. Charlotte Harrison's arrival in Manchester by sea the morning after the storm brought a new dynamic to the already complex situation. Emma watched through the kitchen window as William introduced his sister to the twins for the first time, the nervousness evident in his posture. "You're even more beautiful in person," Charlotte exclaimed, kneeling down in the snow to stand at the girl's height. Her warm smile and effervescent personality soon won over Madeline and Alexandra. "Do you have green eyes like us too?" Alexandra asked, studying her aunt's face with curiosity. "Not really," Charlotte laughed. "We stole all the good genes from the family. But he brought something special for my favorite nieces." Emma felt a tightness in her chest as Charlotte handed the girls 2 small photo albums. "These are pictures of your father when he was little," she explained. "I thought you'd like to see how much he looked like you at the same age." The twins sat on the sofa, engrossed in the photographs, while William and Charlotte exchanged meaningful glances. Emma knew that Charlotte hadn't just come to meet her nieces, there was something more going on. "Emma," Charlotte approached after the girls had gone upstairs to put the albums away. "Can we talk, just the two of us?" William looked tense but nodded when Emma looked in his direction. "I'll take the girls outside to play," he offered, understanding that they both needed privacy. In the kitchen, Charlotte got straight to the point. "I came because I'm worried about Will. He's considering selling Harrison Tech. He told me," Emma replied, preparing coffee for them both. "He said he turned down the offer." "That's not all," Charlotte continued. "He's practically dismantling everything he's built up over the last few years. The move to Boston, the restructuring of the company. Emma, he's risking everything for that second chance." Emma sat back, absorbing the words. "I didn't ask him to do this." "I know," Charlotte smiled gently. "That's exactly why he's doing it. Will has finally understood that some things are more important than business success." But she hesitated. "I'm worried about you too. Me, I've seen how you look at him when you think no one is watching. There's still love there, Emma, but there's also fear." Emma felt tears forming. "He left Charlotte with a note. How can I be sure he won't do it again? Because he's not that man anymore." Charlotte took him as hand. "The Will I know now spends sleepless nights studying child development. He's cancelled important meetings to attend ballet recitals. He smiles looking at pictures of the girls on a cell phone when he thinks no one is watching." Through the window, they could see William helping the twins build a new snowman, his Italian suit completely unsuited to the task, but his smile more genuine than Emma had ever seen it. "Last night," Emma began hesitantly during the storm, "it was like going back in time. Not to the wedding, but to something new, something better," Charlotte suggested. Different, Emma corrected. He's different. I'm different. Sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what really matters, Charlotte observed. We'll learn that the hard way. The sound of laughter caught their attention. William had fallen in the snow, and the twins were taking the opportunity to bury him by throwing snow over his expensive coat. Do you know what he said to me last week? Charlotte continued. That for the first time in his life, he understands what real success is. It's not about shares or business mergers. It's about his daughter's smiles when he arrives, about getting Alexandra to understand a difficult equation, about seeing Madeline proud of her latest drawing. Emma wiped away a discreet tear. The girls love him so much. What about you, Emma? Do you still love him? Before Emma could answer, the kitchen door opened, bringing in 3 snow-covered figures. Mama Didina exclaimed. Aunt Charlotte needs to see our fort. Can we build another one tonight? And can we show you the photos from our recital? Alexandra added. Charlotte laughed at her niece's excitement. I'd love to see all that. But first, I think your father needs some dry clothes. William was drenched, melted snow dripping from his hair, but his smile was radiant. His eyes met Emma's, and at that moment she knew the answer to Charlotte's question. Yes, she still loved him. Not in the same impulsive, idealized way as before, but in a deeper, more mature way. She loved the man. He had become the devoted father who had emerged from the ashes of his former selfishness. I'll get some towels, Emma offered, needing a moment to gather her emotions. In the hallway, she stopped briefly to observe the scene in the kitchen, William trying to dry off the girls while they excitedly told their aunt about their snowman, Charlotte laughing at the stories, the whole scene emanating a natural, unpretentious joy. Maybe Charlotte was right. Maybe some people need to lose everything to find their true north. And maybe, just maybe, the way home wasn't a straight line, but a journey of redemption and rediscovery. Charlotte's visit brought up memories that Emma had carefully put away. While organizing old photographs that the twins had discovered in their albums, she found one in particular that made her heart stop. Her and William on their wedding day dancing under the lights of the San Francisco Botanical Garden, both young and full of dreams. I thought I'd thrown them all away, William's voice surprised her. He was standing in the office doorway, still wearing casual clothes after another morning of playing in the snow with the girls. Some things are hard to discard, Emma admitted, running her finger along the frayed edge of the photograph. The girls have never seen these. I think it's time. William approached cautiously, as if afraid of breaking the fragile moment between them. They asked about our wedding last night during the storm. I see. Alexandra is starting to put the pieces together. She has her analytical mind. In your emotional sensitivity, William added, taking his seat in a nearby armchair. Emma, what did Charlotte talk to you about? She told me about Harrison Tech, Emma interrupted softly. About your life changes? I don't want you to think I'm doing this to impress you. William ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture Emma recognized well. I'm doing it because for the first time I understand what really matters. The sound of children's laughter floated through the open window. Charlotte was in the garden with the twins, teaching them how to make snow angels. The girls loved her, Emma commented, observing the scene. Charlotte always wanted nephews, William smiled. She's never completely forgiven me for what I did to you. She was the first to tell me I was being an arrogant jerk. She's a good sister. And you're an incredible mother, William turned to face her. What you've built here, Emma, the life you've given our daughters, even after I left in that cowardly way. William, Emma interrupted him, feeling tears for me. Why now? Why after 4 years? Because I had to lose everything to understand what I had, he replied, his voice breaking. Every day since I left has been an exercise in regret. But I had no right to come back to mess up the life you had built. And now, William smiled sadly. Now I just want to be worthy of our daughter's love. And maybe one day I'll be worthy of your forgiveness. Emma felt her heart race. The last few weeks had shown a side of William that she had never known during their marriage, patient, devoted, humble. The man who built forts during storms and studied basic mathematics to help Alexandra was very different from the obsessive CEO who had abandoned her. Mom, Dad, Madeline's voice called out from the garden. And Charlotte says she's going to make hot chocolate with marshmallows, William asked, getting up. Of course, Charlotte replied from the garden. What kind of aunt would I be if I forgot the marshmallows? Emma put the wedding photograph away in a drawer, but not before William noticed something written on the back. You kept my promise, he whispered, recognizing his own handwriting wedding vows he hadn't kept. Some promises are hard to forget, Emma replied, closing the drawer. Even when broken. In the kitchen, Charlotte watched the interactions between her brother and Emma with attentive eyes as she prepared the hot chocolate. The girls chattered about their plans to build an igloo the next day, completely oblivious to the emotional tension between the adults. "Did you know that your father built an igloo once?" Charlotte commented, pouring the steaming drinks. "In Chicago when we were little. It lasted 3 whole days." "Can we make one like it?" Alexander asked excitedly. "Of course you can," William smiled. "If your mother allows, I can come early tomorrow to help." Emma nodded, noticing how the girls' eyes lit up every time William showed commitment to his plans. It was as if every promise kept, every moment present, helped to heal not only her daughters' hearts, but hers too. "You could stay for dinner tonight," she suggested, surprising everyone, including herself. "Charlotte too, of course. The girls would love that." William's smile lit up his face in a way that made Emma's heart skip a beat. It was the same smile that had made her fall in love years ago, but now it carried a maturity, a gratitude that made it even more beautiful. Charlotte watched the scene with a knowing smile. Her brother may have made monumental mistakes in the past, but he was doing everything right now. And Emma, despite her understandable reservations, was beginning to let down her defenses. The walls that Emma had built around her heart over the last 4 years were slowly crumbling, not through strength, but through constancy, through William's daily presence, through every promise kept, through every genuine smile from her daughters. Perhaps she thought as she watched a makeshift family gathered in the kitchen, some stories deserved a new chapter. Not a continuation of what was interrupted, but something entirely new, built on stronger foundations of understanding, forgiveness, and mature love. Christmas Eve arrived in Manchester by the Sea with a new layer of fresh snow. Emma watched from the balcony as William helped the twins put the last ornaments on the pine tree they had chosen together the weekend before. The last 2 months had brought subtle but significant changes to their lives. "Hire Dad," Alexandra instructed, holding up a golden star. "The star needs to be at the top." William lifted the girl onto his shoulders with ease, a scene that would have seemed impossible a few months ago. The stiff executive who used to live in Italian suits now wore jeans and a sweater, completely at ease in his role as a father. "Mom, come and see," Madeline called out, proud of the Christmas stocking she had personalized for each member of the family, including one for Aunt Charlotte, who would be arriving the next morning. Emma walked in, feeling the welcoming warmth of the fireplace and the aroma of gingerbread cookies, baking, a tradition her mother had started and which she kept alive for her daughters. The domestic scene made her heart clench with a mixture of emotions. "It's perfect," she smiled, adjusting a crooked ornament. Her fingers accidentally brushed William, sending that familiar electric current through his body. "Emma," he began softly, but was interrupted by the oven timer. The girls rushed into the kitchen, eager to decorate the cookies. Emma followed, grateful for the distraction. Lately, it had become increasingly difficult to maintain the barriers she had built around her heart. "Remember what Grandma always says about Christmas cookies?" Emma asked as she helped the twins with the icing. "That they need to be made with love," Madeline replied promptly. "And that each one has to be different, like snowflakes," Alexandra added, concentrating on creating geometric patterns on her cookie. William watched the scene with a mixture of admiration and regret. How many Christmases had he missed? How many precious moments like this? Well, Alexander called out, snapping him out of his thoughts. "I made this one especially for you." She held up a cookie decorated with numbers and mathematical symbols and icing. "It's perfect, Princess," he smiled, touched by the gesture. The afternoon passed in a blur of Christmas activities. William had insisted on personally assembling the bikes that would be the girls' main present, refusing to let his company's team do the work. "I never thought I'd see you struggling with screwdrivers," Emma commented, finding him surrounded by parts in the office after the girls had gone to bed. "There are lots of things you never thought you'd see me doing," he replied, getting up. "Emma, we need to talk." She nodded, knowing that this moment was inevitable. They sat down on a sofa in the office, the same one where they had found that old wedding photo weeks ago. "I've received another offer for Harrison Tech," William began. 3 times the amount of the previous one. Emma felt her heart sink. "Are you going to accept?" "No," he smiled. "In fact, I signed the papers today, transferring 40% of the company to a trust in the girls' names." And he hesitated 10% for you. William, it's not about money, he interrupted her gently. It's about making sure that our family is always protected, even if you can never forgive me completely. Emma felt tears for me. I've already forgiven you, William. For weeks, maybe months. Then why are you still keeping your distance? Because forgiving is different from trusting, she whispered. And trust is different from love, he added cautiously, moving closer. Emma, I know I don't deserve a second chance, but these last few months have shown me that we're still good together. Different from what we were, more mature perhaps, but still connected. She finished, meeting his eyes, the same eyes she saw every day on her daughter's faces. I'm not asking us to go back to the way things were, William continued. That marriage, that life, it's in the past, but maybe we can build something new, something better. The girls would be happy, Emma admitted. It's not about the girls, William touched her cheek gently. It's about us, about second beginnings and new promises. Promises I intend to keep this time. The sound of small footsteps in the hallway interrupted them. Alexandra appeared in the doorway, hugging her stuffed rabbit. I can't sleep, she muttered. I'm so excited for Christmas. William and Emma exchanged knowing smiles. How about a story, William suggested. About you and Mom, Alexandra asked hopefully. How about a story about second chances? Emma offered, taking her daughter's hand. About how sometimes we need to lose something precious to understand its true value. As they walked up the stairs together, Emma felt William's hand brush hers, a gentle touch full of unspoken promises. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in 4 years, she wasn't afraid of him. The next morning, when the twins discovered their bicycles under the Christmas tree, their cries of joy would be accompanied by something else, the sight of their parents sharing a soft kiss full of promises of a new beginning. Because sometimes, Emma realized, the greatest gift time can give us is not oblivion, but the chance to rewrite our history, not by erasing the mistakes of the past, but by learning from them to build a better future. And so that Christmas in Manchester by Sea, a family found their way back to each other, not through grand gestures or grand promises, but through small moments of truth, regained trust, and renewed love. The end was just another beginning.